So I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. And Ms. Behrman, if you'd kindly call the roll.
Sure thing. Margaret Clements.
Here.
Skip Daly, not here yet.
He will be. He's on arrival.
Pamela Davidson.
Here I am.
Guy Loftman.
Here.
And Jeff Morris.
Here.
All right, we have 4 people and in person and a quorum at the moment.
Is there a motion to introduce the evidence?
I move we introduce tonight's evidence.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to introduce the following items into evidence. The Monroe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Development Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Board of Zoning Appeals Rules of Procedure has adopted and amended, and cases advertised and scheduled for hearing on tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve?
I move to approve.
All right, I'll call the roll.
Is there a second? I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. I'll call the roll. Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
and Margaret Clements.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda, keeping in mind that it's been amended to continue the Mitchell cases? Keeping that in mind, is there?
I move to approve tonight's agenda as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
And Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Okay, and then there are minutes under consideration. Is there a motion to approve those? The minutes of the November 8th meeting?
I move to approve the special meeting minutes of November 8th, 2024.
Second.
Great, there's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes from November 8th, 2024. Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
and Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have one item under administrative business, and I believe this is a resolution brought forward by our colleague, Guy Loftman. If you would be so kind as to.
Yes, I move we approve the following resolution. A resolution in appreciation of D. Owens. Whereas D. Owens served as a member of the Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals from February of 2022 through December of 2024, and whereas D. also served on the Plan Commission, meaning she had many meetings and responsibilities serving the community beyond her BZA responsibilities, and whereas D. brought wisdom and wit to our deliberations, thereby contributing to lively and effective meetings. And whereas D has extensive knowledge of land and locations in Monroe County, which gave depth to her perspectives. And whereas D has for decades been an advocate for the needs of rural communities, both in her service to Monroe County and to the nation through her leadership at the National Rural Alcohol Drug Abuse Network. Therefore, the Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals hereby resolves to express our deep appreciation to D. Owens for her service to the Board of Zoning Appeals to Monroe County and to rural communities throughout the nation, all of which is resolved on this 5th day of March, 2025.
That's very nice, and I see that Dee Owens is online. I'd like to give her an opportunity to speak. If she could be promoted to panelist and unmuted.
I am. They got that done already. Thank you, madam. Well, I'm just floored. I think this is very nice. I didn't even know that anybody really knew about my national service to rural communities. So I much appreciate this. I do miss everybody. I don't miss having to go, it's almost 5:30. I have to say that. But I know things will carry on because look at this group. And Jeff came in. Jeff, you're next, pal.
Thank you. And And thank you so much for your service, Dee. It's your insights and your experience have made us a better board. So thank you for sharing those and for being a part of our process and our leadership.
We
Thank you
appreciate.
so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I very enthusiastically move to approve this resolution honoring Dee Owens.
I would second that.
Okay.
There's been a motion and a second to approve this resolution honoring Dee Owens. Margaret Clements?
Yes.
Skip Daly?
Yes, I'm here for the attendance, and I absolutely approve.
Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
And Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And thank you again, Dee. Now, you can stick
Thank
around.
you, everybody.
You can
Thank
stick
you.
around and attend our meeting, but it's not required.
I might watch for a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate you, Dee. Thank
Yes.
you. Thanks for such
Thank you.
service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other administrative business that we need to take care of?
Well, this screen is not on.
Oh, yes, that's true. Tech services, the screen right here in the middle that we're looking at is not on, and I think some of the members of the board depend upon that for reviewing the case. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to my. Just bear with us while we get all the technology turned on. Simple as turning. Exactly. Thank you so much. Okay, so things are as they should be. So we're moving on to the first item under old business, which is VAR-24-26. This is the Hubli Eco Area 1 variance to Chapter 823 concerning a 26.79 plus or minus acre parcel in Clear Creek Township at 8391 South Fairfax Road. And Ms. Crecelius, if you would kindly review this with us?
Yes, thank you. So I will do a very brief overview, summary, and then the updated documents. So this variance request is a request from the Chapter 823 Environmental Constraints Overlay Eco Area 1, a restriction on land disturbance and on slopes 12% or greater. The purpose of the request is they are proposing a single-family residential dwelling located partially on a slope that exceeds 12%. So just a reminder that we have seen this petition a few times. I did include meeting recording links within your packet if anybody needed to refresh themselves. So this was heard February 5th by the BZA. There was a motion to approve that failed for a lack of second. And then a vote to deny failed by a vote of 2-2. So some of the updated documents here, they've provided 2 sets of plans. Each set contains 2 documents where they compare the desired location with their specific chosen alternative site. So on screen is their desired location, showing the home has been adjusted, but still on slopes greater than 12%, which is the red line in front of you. This is the same plan with the tree removal shown. The comparison is with the other site that they have chosen to pursue as an example alternative location. Again, it's showing that the home is completely within 12%, the red line, and then they show the trees that would be removed. They've also included notes on erosion control, which would be required under their building permit. They've included a letter from their arborists that go over some information about the tree removal and the effect on the negative effects of tree canopy removal. Staff did just want to go ahead and point out that they're using a quick Google image that that the entire site is covered with tree canopy and that any development on the site would be a loss of canopy. And then an updated recommendation is that the petitioner could relocate the proposed structure and be on grades under 12% and remove the need for variance, and that this variance is unable to prove practical difficulties, specifically Part C of the definition that states a significant development limitation that cannot be reasonably addressed through the redesign or relocation of the development building structure existing or proposed. And then our updated recommendation states that the petitioner could redesign and/or relocate a proposed dwelling on the property that would meet all development standards. For example, the dwelling could be reduced in size or dimensions altered to preserve trees. The petitioner continues to compare their desired building location with one other alternative location, and staff wants to point out that there may be other locations on site that would meet the petitioner's desire to preserve trees and meet the standards of the county development ordinance, and therefore we still recommend denial. Does anybody have any questions?
Members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions?
Not me.
Okay, so we turn now to the petitioner, Mr. Carmen, if you would kindly, maybe sign in, just so we have a record. Okay.
As is Mr. Delbridge, who will be up next.
Thank you.
Again, I am Mike Carmen, representing the petitioner. I'm going to speak for just a couple of minutes to turn it over to Mr. Delbridge because he's going to provide information I think is the issue that you wanted to hear about. I really go back to Guy's comments the first time around. He wanted a better understanding and explanation for some of the conclusions that were drawn, and Mr. Delbridge will provide that information when he's done, depending on how much time we use up with answering your questions. I want to be sure to have some time to come back up and then speak and address the various standards specifically in light of the information that Jerome will be exchanging with you here shortly. I do want to make one comment in response to staff report because this issue keeps showing up. I'm going to submit that it's unfair statement, and therefore I would say an appropriate statement, for the staff to keep saying there may be another site that could be used. If there is, show it to us. I mean, to stand here and say, well, there may be on this huge expanse, maybe there's another site, is to say there is no other site because they don't identify it. And so I don't want you to be misled by that. Every site on this property will suffer the same problem that, and Jerome's going to talk to you about, is heavily treed. There is no place to go that you don't confront the heavily trees, with the exception of a small area up closer to the west where is the proposed septic field site, because that's the best and most appropriate site for the septic field, so that it is using that, but every place else is limited. To say that they could redesign, we could draw a pencil and stay within the contour of the buildable area and hug the edge of the ridge line, but that's not appropriate nor reasonable either. The petitioner, as is every property owner, is entitled to reasonable use of the property. And the problem we have with all these lots down near the lake is very difficult to make a reasonable use of the property that does not get into the slopes or get into other concerns and conditions, echo overlay concerns. So we're trying to deal with those with a reasonable design. The architects should be online to be able to answer questions if you have. He's created a linear design to try to spread the building out to hug as much of the top of the ridge line as reasonably possible and still make it a home as opposed to a depot or railroad yard in design. So we've paid attention to those issues, and he's given us a design that works and tries to minimize the footprint that extend beyond the top of the ridge line. But the issues of tree canopy will not go away, and that's what Ms. Delbridge is going to address more specifically, and then I'll be back to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen. Mr. Delbridge, would you kindly come to the podium and raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to review the findings.
Just state your name.
Oh, sorry. Jerome Delbridge.
Thank you.
ISA certified arborist. We've been through the findings and the report many times, so I just want to briefly go over the findings and a couple changes that have changed based on a smaller footprint from the deck that's been proposed. I want to go over the erosion prevention that trees contribute to, and then considerations that I made. Trees and how they affect erosion on the site. We looked at the original site and then a survey of the trees around the alternate site. The forest composition on this property along the ridge, based on visual inspection from where the wood starts, seems to be pretty consistent throughout, with the exception of the area around the originally proposed site, which appears to be somehow impaired, for some reason impaired, so the trees are smaller and there are fewer trees. We were looking at a loss of 10 trees at the original site, as opposed to 37 trees at the alternate site. Those 37 trees, again, are generally larger diameter. The way that we tend to look at that in forestry is if you took a cross section of a tree at chest height, the area that would be, so the trunk area. Sum of the trunk area at the original site, proposed site, is 11 square feet, as opposed to 76 square feet at the other site. We're talking about 7 times more tree trunk diameter at the alternate site, which is consistent with other sites on this property. Next, I want to talk about how trees affect erosion. The ordinance is specific to erosion and runoff. And as I mentioned last month, trees are really remarkable tools on helping to intercept rainwater from the canopy as raindrops fall. They hold energy from rain. I ran a model through a program called iTree, which is widely accepted, internationally accepted as a tool. And I compared the trees that would be lost at the original site versus the alternate site. And every year, the average would be about 9,000 gallons are intercepted by the trees that would be removed at the original site, compared to 71,000 gallons every year that the trees are currently intercepting at the site, which would need to be removed that's 8 times more water annually that's intercepted by this tree canopy. Also, trees provide leaf litter as the leaves fall on the forest floor. It covers the floor, and that helps to pad and carpet the rainwater. Extremely effective against soil erosion. Actually, about 60 times more effective to have an untouched, undisturbed forest floor as opposed to a forest floor that's been burned or wiped clean. Highly ground, which we often don't think about. Trees extend roots far beyond the canopy of a tree, and those roots not only provide cohesion and hold soil together as a network of roots underneath the ground, it also provides habitat for fungus, underground mycorrhizal fungus, microbes that also build soil and contribute to soil health. There are erosion controls that can be done, but trees are the living, breathing bedrock of a forest. By losing that much canopy, tree canopy, and underground roots, we're looking at a long-term effect of this. And I invite you to consider not only the factor that slope plays with erosion, but there's other factors such as the length of slope, the soil cohesion and soil type, rainfall, and ground cover. All of those are also equal and important factors with soil erosion. Trees play a factor in 3 of those. Soil cohesion, play a factor in ground cover, forest cover, and also the interception of stormwater. So I invite you, as I look at these sites, seems like there is a significant consideration should be made for the other factors beyond
Carmen again. In the packet that's submitted was a more formal report and statement by Jerome, and it goes into a little bit more discussion of the studies and the reports and things that he utilized in his work and draw conclusions. And I point that out because I don't like to speak in cliches, and I think after COVID and the overuse of the cliche, trust the science, it becomes a well worn out phrase, but I'm going to use it. Trust the science, and that's what Jerome has brought to this petition. That when we look at the ordinance, the issue is practical difficulties. I mean, that's still the elephant in the room in almost all these variance petitions. So what is the practical difficulties? Staff says, well, they could build someplace else where they don't get in slopes, don't need a variance. That may be true, at least on the one site that we chose to show as a comparison. It appeared that the structure there could be located and not get into the 12-degree slope. But if you take the attitude, let's trust the science, look at the impact of that site compared to the proposed site, and which we believe to be the most reasonable sites on the property, because then after that you get off the end of the top of the ridge line, you're downslope every place you go. So what is the science issue here? What's magic about 12-degree slope? There's nothing magic about it. It's an arbitrary line, but it's a line that was chosen because there is at least some science to support. The most significant issue causing erosion is speed of the water. At a 12-degree slope, it was chosen as a point at which the speed of the water on that slope or a greater slope picks up enough speed that it has a significant increase in erosion effect. That's what that line is. It's a bright line rule that you've adopted and applied, but it was really chosen because there was scientific support at the effect on water speed at 12 degrees of slope or greater. So if that's the issue, speed of the water, the impact of erosion, that the 12-degree slope line is chosen to try to mitigate that erosion issue, then let's look at the impact of erosion elsewhere, or what causes erosion. And that's what Jerome is presenting to you. The tree canopy, or loss of the tree canopy, which also means loss of the trunk, loss of the stump, loss of the root structure, loss of the forest bed of accumulated leaves and other droppings over a period of years or decades in some cases. We lose all that when we have to remove the trees. The site that would keep us out of the 12-degree slopes is full of trees to be removed or will be inevitably damaged, we believe, by the root structure and lost in any event if not have to physically be removed. And that's the area A that he's shown to you. Tried to make it a little bit easier to follow what on there this time than prior version of that. Took out the contour lines, the elevation contour lines, so they just cluttered it up enough that it's hard to see what was on there. When you compare the site that petitioner is proposing where we need the variance because we're getting 12-degree slope, it requires very few tree removals. It does get into the slopes further, but it requires very few tree removals. The site that is, I would say it's kind of northwest from there, up the ridge line a little bit further, we actually go through and go past to get to our preferred site, is the one that has been studied heavily. The trees are marked. The trees are marked that would have to be, that would either be removed or lost as part of the construction of the residence of that location. And Jerome has tried to present you the science of the negative impact there. So the practical difficulties there is honoring the 12-degree slope is a question of honoring minimizing erosion impact or the risk of erosion impact. We do that if we relocate to a site where it doesn't require that severe removal of trees, of the trees. That's the site that we've selected, and that's why we're asking for the variance. The other site that seems to be available that would not have the slope problem, we still dishonor the motive for that 12-degree line, which is lessen the impact, the risk of erosion impacts as a result of construction. Because at that site, while we honor the slope line, we destroy the real purpose of the slope line, which is to reduce the erosion impact that's going to result from, or the risk of it at least, that would result from this project. And that's where the study comes in that Jerome has referred to about all those issues that impact how much erosion is at risk on this particular site. To maintain the tree canopy, which slows down the speed of the water, raindrops, that we was talking about that, at least it captures them and slows it down, and how it does not hit the ground with the impact that causes as much erosion, just like the slope would do. The floor covering on that, the root structure that stabilizes the soils, all those things come together. Says the practical difficulty of adhering to the motive or the purpose of the slope line is difficult at the site that's preferred, because we actually negatively impact the risk of erosion by building at that site, even though we honor the slope line. And that's the reason for the variance request. That is the practical difficulties of complying with the ordinance without actually doing harm that the slope line is intended to prevent. Or I say harm, the increased risk of the harm, because all erosion is enough to control it and have minimized impact. But the ability to do that at the site that would be outside of the slopes, that would not require variance, has that much greater impact because of what it causes in tree removal and the resulting damage to the forest floor, to the root structures, to the what I referred to as stabilizing effects, and even the fungi growth. So we would ask you to support the variance, to approve the variance, because granting the variance allows us to do this same project in an area that greatly reduces the potential risk of erosion problems, or causing erosion that would eventually get to the lake, which is what that slope line is intended to do. But we do better service to that motive and that intent at the preferred site, even though it requires the variance, because it will not have that negative impact.
Mr. Carmen, do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Delbridge or Mr. Carmen? Oh, Mr. Daly?
Not at this time, but I would like to reserve the right to call either of them back up based on our discussions.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Mr. Carmen. Mr. Delbridge, are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the podium here in the Nat Hill courtroom, or if you're online, please raise your virtual hand in order to speak for 3 minutes to support this petition. And I can never tell if there are members of the public who have their hand raised. No. Okay, are there members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, come to the podium and sign in, and we'll swear you in. Oh, and if you're online, there is somebody with their hand raised. We can unmute you, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So if tech services could help unmute, I think it's Sherry Mitchell. I think you might also have to unmute yourself on your own computer. Okay, and if you would kindly state your name and raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You're talking with Sherry Mitchell Brooker now?
Sherry Mitchell, you had your hand raised. Are you speaking
yes.
On the Hughley? Yes. 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 So do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. And you'll have 3 minutes to state your interests.
My name is Sherry Mitchell Brooker. I am the president of the Friends of Lake Monroe. Our mission is to protect the water quality in Lake Monroe and the watershed. And we want to remind everyone that the eco zone is essential in protecting the lake that these landowners want to enjoy. And so, very simply, we recommend finding a location and design that fits these zoning requirements. That's it.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please come to the podium, or please raise your virtual hand on this platform. Do we see anyone? Okay, since there was a remonstrator, then you have 5 minutes for a rebuttal, Mr. Carmen.
5 minutes, but I do want to respond to that. We have the same motive. What she just suggested is exactly what we're proposing. And recognizing the importance of the slope line and what that is from a use and standpoint is to recognize the impact of erosion on the lake. What we propose that requires a variance to it is to reduce the potential impact we have on the lake by not artificially increasing the risk of erosion. And what that requires is that we be able to locate where we do not have to remove nearly as many trees, disturb as much of the forest floor. I agree with her sentiment about the echo issues, and yet if she understood what Jerome was trying to present, and she may believe that she understood it, but her comments, I think, if she really understood what he's saying, would have been to support the petition, because what the petition does is try to give adherence to exactly what she was saying. And we'd ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen. Will we come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion, questions, and/or a motion? Yes, Mr. Daly.
I would like to begin by asking staff a quick question. Looking at this, and this is case number variance 24-26, is that correct? Okay, and so we are looking at 841-4F, is that correct? That's what's stated here, the standards for design variance approval.
Yes.
All right, that concludes my quick question.
Okay. Are there other questions and/or further discussion?
Yeah. This has been a very difficult, interesting case. It presents very clearly the potential for the ordinance to have got it wrong on this little piece of property, one big piece of property with this little building site. On the other hand, the ordinance is clear, and this property doesn't meet the standards. Argument that petitioner is making is that I hear, and it may be correct, it's really very convincing, is it would be better. The county and the lake, the community would be better served. But that's not where I come down on my balancing. Where I come down is it's not impractical. It might be better, but there's no practical except thinking the other one's better. It's practical to build on either site. One has a better, but both are practical. If one is practical and meets the ordinance, and the other is practical, maybe more practical, but doesn't meet the ordinance, I'm going with the ordinance. That's where I intend to vote. I'm not going to make a motion yet because I want to hear what others have to say.
Okay,
That's fine.
yes.
Please.
Mr. Morris?
Yeah, I was going to make a comment because I've gone back and forth on this too. I voted against this last month based on the 12% slope, as Mr. Loftman's saying. But excuse me, the more I think about this, my concern is the lake. And, there's a spot right now where they could build without the variance. However, it would take out more trees, as the arborist is saying. And if my concern is the lake, then I feel like I lean toward the spot that takes out less trees. So that's kind of where my thoughts stand right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morris. Mr. Daly?
I would like to get some clarification from staff on your recommendation on the motion. You say the petitioner could relocate the proposed structure to the northwest, et cetera, specifically part C of the definition that states, we're looking at 841-4, letter F for our standards, correct? You tell me where part C is that states that?
Yeah, we've adopted a new ordinance in the meantime. I want to make sure. Let's see. Okay, that is coming from the definition of practical difficulties, so I'm going to pull it up really quickly.
Right, but that's the definition of practical difficulties, which is not coming from the standards. That's coming from a way to define a particular phrase within the standards.
Yes, so that is referring back to 841-4F number 3, where it states the approval goes on to eliminate practical difficulties in the use of the property.
All right, so your recommendation against then is based specifically on 841-4, letter F. Is that correct?
841-4F number 3.
Number 3. All right, which reads, the approval, including any condition or commitments deemed appropriate, is the minimum variance necessary to eliminate practical difficulties in the use of the property, which would otherwise result from a strict application of the terms of this ordinance. All right, so you've gone on and skipped the number 3, and you went in with the definition of the practical difficulties with that. So what I'm going to suggest is that I disagree with your definition of number 3, and I believe they absolutely 100% fit within criterion number 3, and I would like to address Mr. Loftman and suggest that strict application of the ordinance is 100% of the letter of the law. We are the human side of that to interpret the integrity of the ordinance and apply that to the specific situation. We have very limited decisions. I'm sure the layman might think that we are here and we can make decisions based on our feelings or our thoughts. We cannot do so. However, we can apply the integrity of the ordinance based on the criterion, and there's no doubt in my mind that the petitioner has absolutely made their case that the integrity of the ordinance is to maintain the environmental sanctitude of that property. We would be doing a complete disservice to the ordinance if we insisted that they cause greater damage to the property than what is being proposed right here and right now. And in terms of practical difficulties, I think the practical difficulty needs to be applied to the environment itself. And thinking of it in that manner, I don't see how one could possibly even be confused on this vote. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Mr. Loftman, do you care to respond?
Well, I agree with everything Mr. Daly says except the conclusion. We might be better. Both sides. I don't think we're gutting the ordinance by. I don't think I'm suggesting that it's gutting the ordinance to apply it. But I get your point. I don't think to me, this is a very difficult balancing act. But when I see that balance, I see the duty of the petitioner is to carry the burden that it's impractical to put it in a place that complies, and I don't see that. Although it's carried a long way, it's not carried quite over the goal line that I need to see to approve.
Hoffman, Ms. Davidson?
I want to add to Mr. Morris's comment that the arborist talking about the canopy, the root structure, that is really a very important issue, this dimension of the trees, all those things. I also appreciate the petitioner reducing the footprint of the property to accommodate our wishes to turn it somewhat. And working towards compromise is a very important thing because the erosion is important. And I can, my parents lived on Lake Wawasee. It was quite a problem and different slopes, so I understand this well.
Well, I have to say, this is one of the cases that has really kept me up at night, because we care so much about our drinking water supply. And from everything we know, the lake is set to expire sometime. Well, it was supposed to expire in 2050, but we think that's been increased to probably 2030, 2040, that we have good quality drinking water. But, I also live on a property where I've lost a lot of trees, because of the emerald ash borer. And having lost those old growth trees, I have had and experienced erosion that's significant, and I have to remediate that on a constant basis. And today with the rainfall and the heavy rainfall, I was thinking about the erosion that I'm causing. And, first of all, I have to say to the petitioner, we appreciate it that you're thinking about this, that you're thinking about the erosion, and that you're thinking about how much water, the 71,000 gallons versus the 9,000 gallons of water that the trees are consuming and slowing down as far as what it does to the lake and to the ground. So, and that along with the leaf litter, I find, of course, the scientific arguments compelling. And I was thinking about this today on multiple levels, does this set a precedent, for the building in the 12% slopes? And will this then become a different community than one where the lake becomes just kind of a playground that would kind of speed up its demise? And I was worried about that. I was frankly worried about that. But today, in this, I was prepared to change my vote to a no, but that water interception by the tree canopy argument was a pretty solid argument for me, you know, and I think that you would definitely experience more erosion if you had to remove all of those extra trees. So I think I'm going to be voting in support of this because you have reduced the footprint of the house and you are concerned about the environment, and it seems that you're working with the county and in order to maintain the conditions in a better way than if you had built elsewhere. So I'm tending to vote for it.
May I ask the staff one more question? With property like this on Lake Monroe, which is so sensitive and often the slope issue's got to be a problem all over that terrain, are there any other erosion control measures that they can take? I know during construction they are because that is required, but afterwards, is there anything we could tap on as a condition that would, or no? I don't know.
I mean, because of the size of their,
Yes.
they're going to be required to do a stormwater grading permit. So that is something that they'll have to pull, and it'll be, you know, reviewed by the stormwater team and enforced by that. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Daly?
I would like to make a motion
Yes?
based on,
Yes, Mr. Carmen, yes. So-
Bells and silk screens. I would amend that to if your hydrologist, your soil engineer, anybody has a recommendation for other and increased erosion control measures that could be implemented part of our construction, we will adopt those.
It's good, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Daly?
I would like to make a motion on variance 24-26, Hubli ECO Area 1 variance from Chapter 823. I would like to motion to approve this variance based on, in addition to their incredible commitment to being good stewards of the environment with their proposal and being willing to work with the planning department and the board. I believe that they fulfill all of our requirements in 841-4, letter F as in Foxtrot. And I would like to go a step further as to say the definition of practical difficulties is met based on the reasonability that's mentioned in that definition does indeed apply to us holding the ordinance responsible for further potential degradation of the environment.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Is there a second?
I am willing to second it, but I missed the part, the condition, the practical difficulties. Can you tell me again what you said after
Well,
that?
I suggested
Said it
that
was
it meets
met.
practical
It meant-
difficulties.
And to approve the variance?
Yes.
I second that.
And a motion and a second to approve variance VAR-24-26 based upon the findings that were presented by Skip Daly. I'll call the roll. Margaret Clements.
Yes?
Skip Daly.
Yes.
Guy Loftman.
No?
Jeff Morse.
Yes.
Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you very much.
And now that we've already approved it, do we need to worry about what Mr. Carmen said about the additional measures should a hydrologist? That goes with it?
Staff would prefer that the stormwater grading permit probably deal with the
I see.
additional measures.
We're obligated to sign and record that.
He's on the record.
Things you want to add to that before we?
Thank you.
Sounds like a plan.
On the record.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all
Take
for
care.
your work
Be
on
safe.
this and excellent presentation.
And be
Yes.
safe going home. Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to item number 2, VAR-25-2, Rogers Buildable Area, Riparian Area and 25% slope variance to Chapter 813 concerning 1-5 plus or minus acre parcel in Van Buren Township, Section 26, at 5360 West May Road. And I believe Mr. Brown will be presenting this.
Thank you. So just to give a quick recap, this is a proposal to establish a single-family residence and a detached accessory dwelling unit on the same lot. However, as the plan is currently, the petitioner will have the driveway accessing the principal single-family residence, crossing an area of 25% slope, as well as an area, as well as a riparian area. Again, we do not have building permits for this at this time, so there may be further variances that staff has yet to find. And here are just the locations. You can see the 25% slope back here, as well as site photos that were included in the original presentation back in February. This is actually the new site plan that was submitted, proposing that the new layouts of the driveway that will lead to the single-family residence. And here is just a zoom-in picture of the detached accessory dwelling unit on the left and the single-family residence on the right. And here are some photos that were taken during a site visit earlier this month. The image on the left shows the proposed location of the detached accessory dwelling unit, while the image on the right shows the slope of the area that will need to be crossed in order for the proposed single-family dwelling. And the image on the left here is the riparian area at the points that their petitioner is proposing to cross it. And the image on the right shows the location of the proposed location of the single-family dwelling. Staff's recommendation has not changed from February. We are still recommending denial as there is still buildable area on the property where the single-family residence could be constructed without crossing the riparian area or area of 25% slopes, particularly the front of the property closer to the road. And I will take any questions.
Members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for staff?
My only question is, I'm sure you suggested building closer to the road to the petitioner, and I'm sure they had some views about that, which I guess we can hear from them directly, or anything you want to share?
My understanding is that the proposal is that the owner wants their son and their daughter to each have their own space on the property, and that is the primary reason for the proposed single-family residence and the proposed ADU being built relatively far apart.
Right. Yes. And now that there's an a possible S-curved driveway, does that ameliorate the issue at all? Because that's a lot of driveway material, if I'm looking at that correct. Is that the right-hand picture, the new S-curve configuration? Am I right about that?
Yes, and even at the angle it goes, it still would be crossing an area of 25% slope or greater, as well as our riparian area, hence the variances still stand.
So it really doesn't ameliorate our concerns?
I'm afraid not.
Right now. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Morris?
Daniel, do you know how many trees would have to be taken out in order to put the driveway in?
I am not aware of that at this time, no.
Other questions for staff? Well, if the petitioner would like to come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Rogers? You're Daniel Rogers, correct? And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you. You have 15.
Hey, Daniel had said something like the only reason to do that is currently buying my existing home, which is West May Road, which is on first proposed, I'm sorry. Okay. So the only thing I can see right there is the accessory dwelling house was going to be up closer to the road, and I didn't really see any place you could put two houses up there and still have septic and not cross it. The problem is, wherever we first drew that up, below where the accessory dwelling is going, that's going to be like a septic field that we would have to cross somewhere on his driveway, which is not acceptable. I mean, you're not allowed to do that. We'd have to put in a culvert for drainage, and I really do not see where there is a place for two houses up through there. And the only reason we want to move in the back there is it's flat, it's level. I own, the 10 acres, and I always, had planned for my son and daughter to live on the property. But the ADA is going to be for us, for me. And my daughter is going to be in a house that I currently own. So we were just going to stay on the property and we'd all be together. But there is no reason for it to be so far from their sister or whatever. So I don't know where that came from. And I know that we are going to be crossing a 25% slope. We had worked with Mr. Decker, who drew the drawing up, and he tried to eliminate some of that by making the S-curve. So it would gradually the driveway would be more of an S. Instead of crossing straight down, we would variance a little bit. Go with the slope, the curve. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Do members of the BZA have questions for Mr. Rogers?
Yeah. Could we see, I think it's Exhibit 2. See, there we go. The photo on the left, which house, is it the house that sort of has the little bump into that property that, oh no, that's.
Yes, sir, my house there is there on the right. That little bump is for a barn. I had owned 10 acres, and we originally put the barn up there, and then not knowing that we had to make it 5 acres, and 5 acres was Mr. Deckard. He had to be, a full 5 acres. So we had took that out and made the property line go to the west, to the east just a little bit in the back. So that little bump out is for the barn that is there. My house is currently the green roof that would be on the east side of the driveway there.
Got it.
Daughter is going to.
Okay. And is there, we don't have the drawing of that, but I assume it's more or less the same width.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it was.
But the dadu in front of your house?
That is not an issue that we had planned on. But in selling, I mean, we'd already had it, appraised and getting ready to sell it to my daughter. That's without an accessory dwelling on that.
I wish we could give your family and you in a situation without having that drive go through that slope, and maybe that can be explored if you're not successful in getting them.
We'll have to. It's going to be for my son here, but do you want to build it elsewhere? I don't really think that we would go any further if we cannot do that.
May I ask a quick question of the staff? This is kind of a new case to us with a riparian situation that's brand new. What happens when this is the driveway, not the unit? If the unit were straddling this, there'd be a whole different issue, I am quite sure. The driveway could potentially wash out. Is that possible with the riparian means river? Is that the concern about it?
Right, this is, so a riparian area is just, I mean, we see a visible creek, and there's pictures here of it. And with that, there are flooding concerns, there are water quality concerns. We have worked with stream crossings like that before. Stormwater grading permit would make sure that the culvert is sized appropriately for that. So, so there's that. Something I did want to add was it was hard to see in the staff report, but the new drawing that they have provided with the S curve on the driveway, the engineer is showing that at 14% slopes. And to give that perspective, I know that on one of my drives to work, I go down an 8% slope street. And I think those are also where they get concerned about trucks sometimes getting out of control. So it's pretty steep, even though they've been able with the S curve to lower that to 14%. I'm just giving that fact to you.
Somewhere in the packet there should be a thing from stormwater where we took that up there, and I applied to the state on the riparian issue. And as far as the stormwater, it doesn't drain more than somewhere, I don't know the figures, but Daniel was supposed to include that in the packet. And it was from Storm, and I talked to her, and she didn't see any. It's not draining more than 0.21 acres or whatever. It's a spring that comes out of the ground from my neighbor's house. And then it doesn't go very far, so it's not like it's going into the lake. That's the way I understand it. But I'm just curious if that packet is in there.
I could share screen, I just found it.
Yes, could you?
And did the engineer, whoever you had, Mr. Deckard, did they say that that driveway, if it were going to be constructed, would have a culvert and a way to keep the water away from the road surface? What is the way you build in such a situation like that?
Well, it is over the drain. I mean, anything that is going to drain is going to go into the creek. I mean, the way it is sloped, the way our property comes from May Road, it's all downhill. So there is never, and then it levels, once you go down the hill, it levels out, and then that's when you cross the stream. It's never flooded. It's never, it's got high banks, when it comes out, but that's it, is there's never no flood issue. I mean, it's anything that's going to come off the hill is going to go down to the creek and naturally drain.
But you do get high banks.
Well, it's full, you know, in a rain or whatever. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Questions?
Is there going to be a culvert? Do you have a culvert that would go, the creek would flow through the culvert?
Yes, sir. That's the way we have, haven't got, you know, quite that far yet. We've applied for the driveway permit. We've talked to stormwater, and I don't know exactly, but I am planning on the culvert crossing, to cross it.
Report from the state that
Oh, I just had it pulled up. It's Stream Stats. It's a program that anybody can pull online, and it just gives the watershed.
wasn't looking at it. Can you bring it
Sure,
back?
I can reshare that. Hold on just a moment.
While you pull that up, Mr. Daly has a question.
Was there no interest in looking at buildable site south of the creek? I'm looking at page 62, and it's showing a blue outline of the property with the house there and that notch out, and the creek is to the north, if I'm looking at that correctly, and I'm seeing a flat area on the south and the southeast, and then a little even kind of a nook area of, I don't know, flat but cleared anyway, going up, heading northwest. Was there opposition to looking at that as opposed to creating the hassle of building in an area that really seems challenging?
No, sir. I mean, I don't know. I'm not exactly following exactly where if you're saying it's going to be down below the slope of the driveway, then there would not be room to put a house. It may look like it on the, you know, on your picture there, but the only place there that is flat, and is in the back of the property. You had that in an original picture. I mean, in one of the original photos that Daniel had, I believe.
I believe Mr. Rogers testified the last time that the family likes to be together, but they like to be separate as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
Sure.
is probably
If
why
this
they
is a
like to be together.
No, this is not topographical. It just looks
Yes.
clear, and it looks like the houses to the west, the two houses are all kind of on par with that same area, but this is Monroe County. I understand it jukes and jives in funky ways, but yeah, okay, so you are suggesting that cleared area, which is to the south and to the southwest of your current home, is not buildable because of the slope?
Not because of the slope, but because of the proximity and, because the property is 5 acres. So, but they, it was close to the road and didn't give them as much privacy. Am I stating it correctly for you? Mr.
Yes, but the reason we had subdivided that is to have 5 acres on the other side. The house that we had currently owned was going to sell. There would be no issue of putting an ADA, I mean, you know, over there on that side. So to the west of the driveway is where both houses would have to be, if you say that you could not go from the, you know, across to the back. There is only one house there. I mean, one house proposed. What you're seeing in the picture was a barn, I believe. There's not 2 houses there. And the lot line is where he had made that is right, is real close to the barn. And I'm still a little bit confused without seeing it of where you're referring to it, unless that's,
Tammy, could you put up page 62 of the packet with the area with the red riparian area identified? On the right-hand side of, not the green and the purple and
Yes.
the orange, but to the right with the trees and the red area that can get water from time to time. I think that Mr. Daly's question is, why not put the house closer to the road, closer to May Road? Am I stating that correctly?
I'm just going to walk this over to him.
thank you.
If you could speak into the microphone, we're sorry. but-
That is where the ADA is proposed.
And I think you mean
It's going to be on a
80.
different, it's going to be on the other 5 acres that we own. So that's where where you see that proposed drawing is where the accessory dwelling is going to be, which is going to be right up in close to the.
Yeah, it's up at the top of that. Yeah, the accessory dwelling unit. So Mr. Rogers and his wife are going to move into the accessory dwelling unit, and the son, Mr. Rogers, will move into the currently pre-existing house. Is that correct?
Well, my daughter.
Your daughter?
My daughter is
Okay.
the pre-existing house.
Okay, thank you,
He
sorry.
is going, if we can't, that's why we're here, is to see if we can build in the back of the property
Yeah.
for
And
him,
you-
for my son.
your son would live in the back?
Yes, sir, that's whose driveway and all
So
this.
you aren't the one who's going to be going down that slope?
No, sir.
In winter, okay, well. I'd like to go back to the drainage drawing.
Yes, the state drainage, before we went on the last question. Sorry to have interrupted that, Mr. Loftman.
Okay, so what this is basically showing is the yellow is the delineated drainage basin that kind of is for the point here where the driveway would cross the creek. And the area that contributes to flow at that point is 0.201 square miles. Doesn't mean it can't flood still, but it does not get regulated by DNR. DNR requires 1 square mile. Planning still has some, and stormwater still have some regulations under other of these riparian areas, though, to make sure that proper, best management practices are used.
Let me try to see if I'm understanding it the way you do. This is, I'm going to say it's 1/5 of an acre. The whole area that drains through, that would be draining through the culvert is 0.201, is 0.2 acres. Is that right?
0.2 square miles.
Of
Sorry.
course.
Yeah.
Excuse me, is 0.2 square miles, which would be a lot more than 2 acres. But it's not a big drainage area.
No, it's not. I
By my
don't think
standards.
and it doesn't reach the threshold of the state regulation with regards to floodplain management. Something to also note about the topography is that this whole property is a north-facing slope. So I don't know if that had been brought to your attention. Basically, if it was a south-facing slope, it would get more sun on it. This one's north-facing, and it'll stay cooler longer and have just different conditions associated with it. So
I live on a north-facing slope. It country with a few acres, so I know. Outside of the house. Appreciate your bringing this to our.
With this in mind, if we will move on to the public, and if there's anyone who speaks in opposition, you'll have an opportunity to return to the microphone. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the podium and sign in, or if you're online, raise your virtual hand to be recognized. There's no one. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. We see no one. We move back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and or a motion. Morris, you look like you have a...
I was just going to make a comment. I appreciate that the petitioner has worked to reduce this. Saw last time. I think that's a large decrease in slope. So I appreciate that. It's also a factor to me that, you know, this is 1/5 of a square mile, if I'm doing the math right, Tammy, that's draining into this. So it's not a huge area that has, you know.
Anyone else have any comment? I want to thank the property owner and Mr. Brown and planning staff for trying to coordinate a visit. I myself apologize for not being able to get out to the property. I just had other commitments at the second time proposed. So, but thank you for your cooperation.
If I might ask, who made it?
I don't think I'm not sure if anyone did.
It was me.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
I went too.
Oh, good.
Is there anything you want to tell us about that?
It's a steep slope. That was me in one of the photos there climbing back up the hill. But I think, you know, with putting that S-curve in, I think that greatly decreases the down the hill proposal that they had last month when we heard.
And I just want to add, I'm totally sympathetic to the siblings wanting their houses to be a distance apart. I understand that to crowd them up by the road together compromises the yard, it compromises the privacy, it compromises noise, it compromises, you know, anything sound from the road, all those things. So I can appreciate that.
So a staff question. Who will have to approve the size and location and construction of the culvert if this is approved?
It'd be done through a stormwater grading permit, most likely, because what they're proposing here is more than an acre of disturbance. So it'll need the construction general stormwater permit, which is an IDEM requirement, and it's also going to need the stormwater grading permit as well. So the sizing will happen of the culvert after a review of their plans.
So is there a possibility that if we say yes, stormwater might say no?
I mean, they do have a drainage board, but I don't know if this would rise to the level of a drainage board review.
When I talked to Stormwater, she did not have an issue with it. I mean, that's when we first came up here last month. I was not even aware there was a riparian variance needed at that time because we had already talked to her. I can't remember, I wonder if their name's Jody. I'm not.
Erica Penna.
Erica, okay. And that's it, she had done all those drawings, and that should be what's in the packet. It wasn't submitted last time, but did you find that where Daniel Brown was supposed to put that in there? Because it kind of threw me for a curve last time when they had the riparian crossing, because the only thing I was prepared for was the slope. So but everything that she had done and that she had proposed, and she said that she did not see an issue. It's just a stormwater because of the it wasn't very long, and there's only a couple people that ever, would drain on that. But I don't have the drawing in front of me, and it should be included in that packet, and I do not know if it is.
I will just ask, is Erica Pena online? Is she online? No, okay.
Mr. Rogers, are you telling us that you're going to construct if we approve this, the S-curve driveway that reduces some of the slope and problems?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you're telling
Yes,
us?
that is why we had it redrawn.
Okay.
And he thought maybe he can help a little bit on the slope. So it's going to be, it's going to help reduce that. Mr. Morris can probably tell that, that's not going to be straight over the hill as proposed.
It was a steep.
Mr. Rogers, one more. I'm looking at I'm standing on the road looking, is the water running to the left or to the right? I can't tell from this whether.
If you're standing on May Road, the creek is behind the whole property. There is no, it's not really left. It comes out of the west bank, probably, I don't know how far, Nathan, where it comes out. Then that way it would be going from west to east. To answer your question.
That answers my question. I just wanted to know how that was going to. Wanted to know which was downhill, and I couldn't tell from this.
Are there other items to discuss, or is there a motion on this item?
Oops. I will make a motion for VAR-25-2 that we approve.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay.
Great, there's been a motion and a second to approve variance VAR-25-2. Go ahead and call the roll. Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Skip Daly. Sorry, Skip Daly. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much for your time, and have a happy family.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to item number 4, which is Emerald Grading and Seeding Conditional Use to Chapter 805, Rural General Contractor, concerning 112.14 plus or minus acre parcel in Section 29 of Van Buren Township at 8821 West Elrin Road. And Mr. Myers, would you please review this case with us?
Thank you. This is CDU-25-1. It's located at 8821 West Elrin Road. It's 12.14 acres. It is unplatted, and it is in Van Buren Township, Section 29. The property is zoned Agricultural Residential 2.45, or AGR for short. The petitioner is seeking a conditional use approval for a general contractor rural per Chapter 804 of the Agricultural Residential 2.5 zone. The petitioner lives at the property and is the owner and operator of Emerald Grading and Seeding Incorporated. Let's see here. In December of this past year, the petitioner submitted a residential pole barn structure permit application for a new pole barn for personal use that is about 3,072 square feet. And after review of that application, planning staff identified commercial activity occurring on the property and did not have a commercial site plan on file for the property. Through the use determination process, it was determined that the use of the property did classify as general contractor rural, which is a conditional use in the AGR zone. According to the petitioner's letter in Exhibit 2, Emerald Grading and Seeding has been in business since 2001 and was incorporated on April 8th, 2005. The property was purchased by the petitioner in January 2007, and their home was built in 2008. The petitioner states that the main use of the property is for their family residence, as well as for the storage of materials and equipment related to the contractor business. Customers do not visit the property, and the business employs 3 full-time employees, including the owner, and there is no employee parking on the property as everyone reports to the job site each day. So here's the Van Buren Township. Here we have a site conditions map. The red splotches are slopes greater than 25%. It is not in the eco area, being this far west in the county. And you can see in the northern portion of the properties where the general contractor business is located, and then you follow the driveway south into the property where the residential structure is. Here we have some aerial pictometry of the commercial use of the site. You can see the storage of materials as well as a few buildings that provide storage for materials and equipment. And here we have some street view imagery of the property. This imagery is from Google, which was taken in 2023. As you can see, there's no signage on the property for the use. So as a conditional use in the AGR zone, there are a set of conditions that must be met, or that the Board of Zoning Appeals finds are met. According to Chapter 811-11B, there are 9 conditions that must be met, including A through D under subheading 9. So on the screen, we have 1 through 4, and in the green text is showing that the condition is met, and then in the orange text is indicating, after staff's review, that the condition can be met, working with the petitioner, specifically number 3, recording an affidavit and commitment stating that that the property owner will reside on the property full-time prior to the site plan approval being granted, to incorporate the use of rural general contractor, meaning the property owner lives on site and also operates that same business. So conditions 5 through 9 on the screen here. Again, the green text conditions can be met. And then there are some sub lettering here for number 9, including a minimum of, letter A, a minimum of 6-foot opaque fence or landscaping that meets the interior tree requirement, must immediately surround around the entire storage area, meeting the type D buffer yard type in Chapter 816. Type D buffer yard relates to landscaping requirements. The screening must capture the entirety of items stored, and staff has the final determination as to whether fencing or landscaping is more appropriate, depending on items stored. So the tag there in the orange, this condition to be demonstrated during the commercial site plan review process. So following this conditional use application, if it is granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals, the property owner will be directed to submit a commercial site plan where some of these items can be addressed. Letter B can be met as indicated. Letter C, no outdoor storage area may exceed 100 feet by 100 feet and must be located within buildable area. So this condition could be demonstrated by the property. It would involve some some removal of improved surfaces, but this is possibly achievable through some redesign of the storage areas. And then finally, letter D, that also can be met. Now on the screen, we have the letter from the petitioner stating their intent for the conditional use application, as well as some brief history of the site. Then on the right side of the screen, we have the submitted site plan provided by the petitioner. I'll also note that the Highway Department has been in contact with the petitioner to submit a right-of-way activity permit to establish a commercial use driveway on site, as such permit was not on file, and the petitioner has submitted that permit with the Highway Department, and it is on hold with respect to the outcome of this conditional use. So that brings us to staff's recommendation. Staff recommends approval due to the ability to fulfill the requirements of the conditional use standards, subject to county highway engineer and stormwater program manager reports, with the following condition. Number one, the petitioner requires all necessary after-the-fact permits for structures constructed on the property that would have normally required an improvement location permit. A bit of detail on that condition of approval is that through the initial review of the site, when staff caught the need for the conditional use for the commercial activity, there was also a few structures in relation to that use that were built without permits, and we'll just require that those structures receive after-the-fact permits for those.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Do members of the BZA have questions for staff? Mr. Loftman? That's okay.
I think I've asked this question before for comparable things, but if this is granted and then the owner sells the property in 5 or 10 or whatever years, what does it place on the new owner? Do these same restrictions continue to apply about residing on the property if it's going to be a business?
Yes.
Wow, what a great answer.
Simple answer. Okay. Well, Mr. Stevenson, if you would kindly come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. And his name is Jacob Stevenson.
You can call me Jake.
Jake Stevenson. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, you have 15 minutes.
We aren't going to need that. Number one, I want to start off by saying thank you, Drew. You cut down on that 15-minute presentation I had planned, so thank you. Number two, I'm not real good at public speaking, so just bear with me. We'll see what happens here. But my name is Jake Stevenson. I am the owner of Emerald Grading and Seeding. A lot of this is going to be repeat from what Drew had said earlier. Out of college, I started Emerald Grading and Seeding back in 2001, incorporated in 2005. And what we started off with business-wise was finished grading, seeding, strawing, new construction homes. This was back whenever, we're building all these quarter-acre lots and all these subdivisions across the county. Through the years, we have evolved, kind of adjusted, I guess you could say. We got into turf, not only erosion, I could have stood up earlier in erosion control. I had some, but anyways, we got into athletic field, turf, drainage, actually building ball fields around the state of Indiana for about 5 to 6 years. My wife and I, we do live at this property. Basically got back home, quit running around, working, chasing a dollar. We now pretty much primarily do grading and excavating, some erosion control. We do a lot of work at Crane Naval Base, and we do remediate all of our own, basically, disturbances down there. And we are primarily putting in underground utilities such as telecommunications, secondary and electric, and high voltage electric. But we bought my wife and I, we bought the property back in 2007. The address is 8821 West Elverin Road in Van Buren Township. At that time, in 2008, I built our house and our barn pretty much just back to back. I don't know if or not, but for the barn, its main priority is storage. We keep our equipment in there, keep tools in there. We maintain our equipment in there, trucks, trailers, so on and so forth. As far as customers coming to the property, unless it's a neighbor that needs something, they don't come to the property. My employees, I've had one employee, he's been with me for 16 years. Both guys I have working for me, they do have company trucks. They take home all the time. They report directly to the job site. So there's no coming and goings of them. The only one that's coming and going is myself in the morning and in the evening. As far as truck traffic, business oriented, not the Amazon guy. We do have a trash company come in, empty a dumpster once a week. And then in the busy season, we have a fuel guy come and drop fuel off, fill our bulk tanks up probably once every 6 weeks. There's no signage, no advertising. I try to keep the property well kept, cleaned up. Every vehicle, every trailer that I own is registered with up-to-date tags, DOT inspected, insured, along with all of our equipment. And also we try to keep everything that I can inside locked up. We've had quite a few problems since 2007 of vandalism, burglaries, so on and so forth. So our house, I know it did say that you need to be a primary resident at that location. I am, and I would be happy to give you an affidavit. Okay, I just saw the red. So I do have a wife, 2 kids that live there. And as far as forever as you can see, I do plan on staying there and not leaving. I did talk to Ben Ayers with Monroe County Highway Department. He kind of reached out to me on the portal as far as the rural right-of-way permit for commercial, I think was called. Is that right, Drew? Chatted with him on the phone. He came out, did some measuring, did what he needed to do. He did reach back out to me the next day asking for a letter of explaining why my driveway entrance was so wide. I gave him a letter back. The reason for that is, I don't know if you guys need to know this or not, truck and trailers getting in and out safely. That's all. That's it.
Thank you, and congratulations on building a successful business. I really appreciate that and your service to the community. But I want to turn to my colleagues here on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Daly.
Madam Chair, thank you. Quick question, Mr. Stevenson. I'm guessing it's on the minds of all of us. I'll cut to the chase. There's a lot of conditions that have been recommended if we approve this. Are you aware of those conditions? Have you spoken with the planning staff about those? And my second question, I'll let you answer both at the same time. Are you willing to comply with all of those?
But if I don't comply, I don't have a job. So, yeah, I will comply happily.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Since this is one question that came up by staff, and it seems to be a considerable potentially a considerable expense, and that has to do with the fencing, and I wondered if his storage of his vehicles inside the structures that he's built to protect them from vandalism go some distance to meeting that requirement.
If I'm reading directly from the requirement from Chapter 811, it states a minimum of 6-foot opaque fence or landscaping that meets the interior tree requirement, et cetera, et cetera. The screening must capture the entirety of items stored, and staff has the final determination as to whether fencing or landscaping is more appropriate depending on items stored. If it can be demonstrated that all equipment can be stored inside, there might be some flexibility there. I would want to relay that information to the planning director to see what that final determination would be.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Mr. Stevenson or?
I would like public speaker.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay, well then we're going to turn to the public now for either people who would like to support the petition or people who would like to speak in opposition to the position. Oh, thank you. It's good to see you. Kindly sign. Are you in? Ms. Moss, would you kindly raise your right hand? And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Amy Hutchinson.
Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I thought you were someone else.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. My eyes are getting bad.
Amy
Hutchinson.
Yeah. Amy Hutchinson.
I'd just like to speak real quickly. I've lived out on Elrin Road since 2002. Built my house out there in 2004, 2005. And we've seen a lot of growth on Elrin Road. And I pass by this house or this area every day, going to work and coming home. And Emerald Grading has done a great job of just like improving our area out there whenever we live very close to the Green County Line Road. And it's a little shady sometimes, but he's done a really good job of just keeping that area high and tight, very organized, and he makes my property value go up, I feel like. So, and he's always been very helpful if any of his neighbors have any concerns about drainage or about the way their driveway is, or if they need more stone. I've seen him go and help other neighbors up the road any which way. He's helped us before, so he's just an all-around great business guy, and I think he's done a great job. So
It's nice to hear.
thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other members of the public have comments in support of or in opposition to this petition? Since there are none, I'd like to return to the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
Well, I think this has been a very convincing presentation. The thing it makes me think is why the title companies don't address zoning when wants to buy real estate. Because I think it sounds like you bought something that didn't comply with, and Mr. Stevenson bought something that didn't comply with the current zoning and only found out when he wanted to yeah. And you know, the title company looks at a lot of things, but I wish they looked at zoning, but I should probably call Mr. Carmen and have a private conversation with him about that, but it's always very sympathetic when you buy something without any particular way to find out it doesn't meet standards, and
Did you want to put subject to that condition about removing the few trees along that, subject to that condition?
Subject to the conditions set forth in the
I'll second that.
Yes. He's already met most of the conditions.
Yes, he's met most of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's been a motion and a second to approve conditional use CDU-25-1 with the one condition of approval listed in the staff packet that the petitioner acquires all necessary after-the-fact permits for structures constructed on the property that would have normally required an improvement location permit. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Skip Daly,
Yes.
and Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you for your services. Thank you. They'll continue to work with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we are moving on to variances 25-3A through D pertaining to maximum impervious surface cover, side yard setback, buffer yard or opaque requirement, environmental constraints overlay, and this has to do with a Salt Creek water treatment plant, and it concerns a .92 plus or minus acre parcel in Section 35 of Salt Creek Township at 9006 East Court. And I believe Mr. Brown will review this with us.
Thank you. So the purpose for this is to obtain variances and make water modifications to an existing water treatment plant at this property. There is also a single-family residence on the east side of the property, while the water treatment plant is on the southwest corner. The petitioner is proposing specifically to demolish multiple structures on the property and replace them with new structures. However, the proposed modifications do not meet multiple standards of the county development ordinance. There is a commercial site plan associated with the proposed modifications at this time, but it has not been approved by staff, though it is currently undergoing review. There may be more variances that staff has not found yet. So, a summary of the maximum impervious cover variance. The existing structures that will remain along with the proposed structures total an estimated 8,480 square feet. In the residential 1 zoning district, the maximum impervious surface is 50% of the lot or 7,000 square feet, whichever is less. As such, the maximum impervious cover variance is required since they're over by 1,480 square feet. Had the single family not also been on the same lot, the impervious of this project alone technically would have otherwise met the standard. The petition did receive approval by the Drainage Board to waive the requirement for stormwater detention. As for the side yard setback, the location of the proposed 1,370 square foot building is estimated to be 1 foot from the southern property line. The petitioner plans to operate the existing water treatment plant until the new facility is installed and running, thus they are limited in area in which they can build. Subdivision residents are aware of the modifications to this property, as well as the 1 foot setback provided on the south side. The property to the south is also vacant. Minimum side yard setback in residential 1 zoning district is 10 feet, however, hence this variance is required for the petitioner's plan. For the buffer yard or the opaque fence requirements, according to Chapter 811 U1, it says utility facilities shall be screened with landscaping per Chapter 816 of the medium buffer yard landscaping requirement, or an opaque fence or wall to a height of at least 6 feet. No buffer yard is required due to the petition property and the surrounding properties being used for single family. However, an opaque fence for screening is still required as it is a minor utility use. While there is a fence being proposed, it is planned to be open on the south side due to the 1 foot distance from the side property line. As for the environmental constraints overlay area 1 variance, they don't meet several of the requirements for properties as listed in Chapter 823-5A. 1, the minimum land slope on which any land disturbance involved in the construction of buildings, driveways, roads, parking lots, and utilities can occur shall be 12%. The slope shall be measured as a 7.5-foot fall in any 50-foot distance. The design should be suited to the lot to minimize the amount of cut and fill. Based on GIS, all the proposed modifications are in areas on over 12% slope. 2, there shall be no disturbance of natural vegetation beyond the 12% slope line. Again, the proposed modifications are almost entirely in areas greater than 12% slope. 3, the maximum residential density that shall be allowed is 1 unit per 5 acres. The legal acreage of this petition site is 0.92 acres, more or less. The acreage of the petition site as measured on GIS by staff is an estimated 1.67 acres, more or less. However, this proposal does not change the residential density of this lot, and it's not adding any additional residential units. Number 4, lots fronting the lake require a minimum of 300 feet total lake frontage. This standard does not apply as the petition site does not directly front the lake. And number 5, each dwelling unit shall have at least 1 acre total contiguous buildable area land. The petition site measured by staff on GIS is 1.67 acres, but an estimated 1.54 acres is in areas of 12% slope or greater. And here are images of the petition sites, maps showing the location and a comprehensive plan. It's almost, but not quite, on Lake Monroe, as well as site conditions and the CDL map. So staff is recommending approval of variances VAR 25-3A, VAR 25-3B, and VAR 25-3C, as practical difficulties have been demonstrated due to the fact that the existing water treatment plant must remain operational on the site while the redevelopment is occurring. We also are recommending approval of VAR 25-3D due to the pre-existing non-conforming nature of the lots and that practical difficulties have been demonstrated. This includes 1 condition of approval, that trees with a diameter at breast height of 3 inches or greater adjacent to the construction envelope are to be preserved and shall have protective measures added to the plan set and be marked on the site. And are there any questions?
So the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Brown? No. Okay, then the petitioner can please come to the podium, sign in, state your name, and then we will swear you in. Mr. Paredes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And if you would kindly state your first and last name so we pronounce it correctly and that we know it.
Sure. First name is Ricardo, last name is Paredes. I'm with RQAW DCCM. We are the consulting engineer that has been working with Salt Creek Estates since November of last year in the design of this treatment facility. I won't regurgitate everything Mr. Brown just explained. He did a pretty good job covering the situation that we have with the request for the variances. But the big thing, I want to just kind of clarify a couple of things that he mentioned. As he noted, the current site currently lives and operates in a residential lot and has been there since the 1960s. This facility provides water for all the residents in the Salt Creek area. So they have no direct connection to other outside communities to be able to get that access of clean water. As such, being a facility that is from the 1960s, obviously is showing some age and deterioration. So as part of these improvements presented by Salt Creek and brought us in, one of the goals was to make a more efficient plant and just keep all the operations under one roof. The current system or the current plant operates under 3 individual buildings plus 1 storage tank on site. The goal would be to keep everything under one roof, where, I don't know if Dan can turn to the layout showing the entire building. Either the site plan, C300 could probably provide a good idea. Actually, if you want to keep there, Daniel, that'd be great. You mentioned that we have requested a variance on the fence on the south side. We have fence on the south with a gate on the drive. We just won't have a portion of fence that is on that face, on the southern face of the building. Again, due to the limitations of the site, the entire site is enclosed within an easement that it lives on a slope. So if we go further east into the slope, we now start getting into, there's a small depression that drains around the site, due north, and then hooks around west and comes south into the lake. And as Daniel noted, our goal is to keep the plant running as construction goes, because if not, it would provide an extraneous amount of financial concerns to the community to have to truck in water during construction. So we have a sequencing plan in place to be able to do construction while keeping the plant in operation. I know I'm not taking the entire 15 minutes, but if the board has any questions or anything they would like to, for us or myself to clarify.
Thank you. Ms.
The buildings that are on site right now look pretty darn modest. There's new buildings being added, correct? If
Yes,
I've read that with
one new building.
One new building,
Yes.
and a pathway in between those.
Yes. So, okay. So if we look at the drawing, you guys see that on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. The main building that you see on the bottom right that has the 2 levels, that will be the new treatment facility that would house all the components. The structure, the round structure that is west of it, that is an existing structure that will remain, and it's part of the operational process that we need to process potable water for the community. The structure on the northeast, that is an existing structure that will remain once the construction is completed. And that is currently acting as a second step in the processing of making potable water currently for the community. So overall, we'll have 1 new building plus 2 existing structures remaining.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there further questions?
I got one. Do you draw water out of the lake?
Salt Creek currently has an agreement, and they have probably permitted to take water from the lake and then process it to be able to serve the community. Yes.
And how many people do you serve? How many homes?
I believe, do not misspeak, it's probably 40 homes?
It's 46 homes.
Yeah. So, 46 homes, I would say, yes.
It's, I serve on the East Monroe Water Board of Directors, and the site is difficult to get a line to. It would be much more costly to get a water line to service that area. So they have a utility, a small water utility to serve the homes in that area.
And we've actually explored that.
Yes, I remember.
To reiterate
Yes.
what was shared, yes.
Just a point of order. Anything needs to be on the record, needs to be spoken through a microphone. Sorry.
Just to reiterate what was just shared by the public, we have explored other options to service the community outside of own treatment, and that have resulted in exploratory costs of over $8 million.
It's
Not
very
really
expensive.
a feasible option for the community.
Yes.
And therefore, this is the next alternative that the community, the Salt Creek, is looking to just improve the water quality for their members.
Is the cost of this paid entirely by the homeowners?
So there is a component where Salt Creek this project has been in the works for several years. They finally secured funding through the IFA and the Indiana Finance Authority through a SWIFT fund last year that has granted them a considerable grant that they can use for part of this portion, as well as any soft costs or engineering, legal, easement requirements if there's anything there. On top of that, the community has agreed to also provide anything of the difference to do the construction of this project. So there's a portion where there's grant funding that will pay for this project, and portion that will be funded by the community members themselves.
Right, and none of it will be paid by Monroe County taxpayers except for the taxes and these fees. Very good.
The community will be planning to do assessments to their homeowners to be able to generate any funds that are needed to complete the project. To answer your question, no, there wouldn't be any taxpayers directly coming from the county, unless you live in Salt Creek. So.
Okay, well, what I'll do now is open this up to members of the public who are either in favor or opposed to this petition. If there are members of the public who are in favor or opposed, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand so you can speak in favor of or in opposition to this. Yes, sir, please come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Would you kindly raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And could you please state your name, sir?
Anthony Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. You have 3 minutes to address us. Three.
The picture that was up there showed that lot.
Yes.
It's not on this, yeah, that one. That's my lot, and this is adjacent to it.
Yes.
It's been that way for years. I live up sort of on the top of the lot.
Yes.
It's down at the bottom. It's not a bother at all, and I just wanted to say they've been doing a very professional job of planning this. We're due for a new plant, and I approve it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming in support of this petition. We really appreciate that.
All right.
Are there other members who would like to please come to the podium and sign in? And please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. And what is your name?
Thank you. My name is Mark Fisk. I live at 9005 Emerald Court in Salt Creek Estates. My wife and I are here tonight in support of these variances. You know, when you live rural like we do, we're about 45 minutes from the courthouse. I don't know if any of you know where TC Steel historic site is. If you're at TC Steel, we're about 15 minutes down a gravel road. So basically, we're a self-serving small community. Like Carl said, we have about 74 lots, 45, 46 homeowners, and we're growing. And we're also an aging community, so some of us have grandchildren, and we fully realize the importance of drinking water. When you have a home in a rural setting, what are the two most important things to you? It's water and sewer. And we have an aging plant that was built in the 60s. It's done very well with little or no upkeep over the years, but like Tony said, it's aged, and everybody that looks at it has said it needs to be fully replaced. We produce our drinking water under the guidance and authority of IDEM, so we have plenty of guidance on that. And we're struggling to make water in an affordable a reliable fashion. And when we turned and talked to the engineering professionals, the solution is to build new. Well, that's what we're hoping to do, but we have to continue to provide drinking water for our residences. So we keep the existing plant operating. The other plant is right next to it. It's going to be fully constructed within an easement that resides solely on Tony Moore's residential lot. He's here in favor of it. And so my wife and I are here just to offer our support for these variances. And this is kind of the second step. We went through the stormwater group earlier, and I think we have a commercial site plan that still is being reviewed, but we identified variances on our own, so that's why we're here tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fisk. Yes, sir. Please sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, and please state your name.
Carl Bauer.
Thank you.
I'm the Salt Creek Estates HOA president, and I just want to give you a little bit about the history or background of our community. I think we're one of the biggest kept secrets in Monroe County. To get to us, you actually have to go into Brown County, and then you go through 5 miles of the Hoosier National Forest, and you end up in our community, which is right on the border of Brown County and Monroe County. It has, as Mark stated, 74 lots, and we have 46 homes. And it's just a beautiful community right on the lake of Lake Monroe, and has a boat dock that's licensed by DNR, and people come there and go boating all summer long. But what we found over the years is our infrastructure is getting very old. The community was started in 1967 by Bud Hook of Hook's Drugs. And at that point, the infrastructure was added. We have our own water plant. We have our own sewer plant. And they're now over 50 years old. And the Indiana Department of Environmental Management has made it quite clear that we have to address these issues and replace the water and sewer plant. And we're doing it in phases. The first phase is for the water. Second phase would be for the sewer plant. We spent a lot of time and effort doing grant proposals to the Indiana Finance Authority, and they were awarded. And so we have money, at least partially, to finance the water plant, and we have a long-term loan that we can get from IDEM for the sewer plant. And then what we can't make up from those, we will use assessments from the community. They're all aware of this. We have had many community meetings and lots of discussions with the homeowners and lot owners as to the costs and how we're going to finance these projects. We've also continued to grow. So over the years, we used to be just small little cabins for the weekend homeowners. But over the years, as Bloomington grows, we grow. And now what we're seeing is a lot of people are buying these small little cabins. They're rebuilding them into 3, 4, 5-bedroom homes and living there full time. And we now have a number of full-time residents, many professionals from the city of Bloomington, and live there and commute on a daily basis. So our water needs continue to grow, and we have to meet the needs of our community.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bauer. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak on this? If not, we can turn back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and/or a motion. Yes, Mr. Daly.
One quick question for staff. Mr. Brown, if you're still on there with us. Am I to understand that you are willing to waive the requirement, or you need our approval to waive the requirement for the fencing on the east side, which is the back of the building?
So the understanding is that on the south side of the property, they're only 1 foot from the property line, and that's the portion specifically along that building, as Ricardo said, that there is going to be no fencing. There will be fencing on the rest surrounding the rest of the facility, is my understanding.
All right, and that works with you?
The 1 foot setback is not enough space to provide fencing or landscaping, and yes, so we are recommending approval on that.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve variances 25-3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D because practical difficulties have been met. And we've seen that throughout all the conversation and the staff reports. A condition to the 3D, the eco area, to preserve all the trees possible because the fence looks like can't be inserted due to size limitations.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve VAR-25-3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D. And this does include one condition of approval in the staff report, that is trees with a diameter at breast height of 3 inches or greater adjacent to the construction envelope are to be preserved and shall have protective measures added, plan set, and be marked on the site. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Margaret Clements?
Yes.
And Skip Daly?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your service to your community. Thank you. Thank you.
Clean water is essential.
Yes. We're moving on to items number 9 and 10 on the agenda, variances 25-4A and B, and this is a community KIA prohibited signs variance to Chapter 817 and total sign allocation and number variance to Chapter 817 concerning 5.22 plus or minus parcel in Section 1 of Van Buren Township at 701 South Liberty Drive. And if you could please review that with us, Ms. Crecelius.
Yes, thank you. So this is for petition site currently owned by Auto Vest, is the petitioner, and represented by Mr. Butler with Bynum Faneuil. So this is for a community Kia dealership. So the property's off of Liberty Drive. The site, the picture shown on screen currently is an older pictometry photo from 2020. The site is developed and has a conditional LUC. It is it's zoned PUD and what has been developed over the last few years. So they are requesting 2 commercial design standard variances for an unpermitted ground sign that was installed. So a little difficult to see, but the petitioner did reach out and have a sign permit application in June of 2024 for 7 signs on site, including 1 ground sign for South Liberty Drive road frontage. So the right yellow circle on screen is the permitted ground sign, which we'll see a little bit closer here in a second. And the one on the left is an unpermitted sign that was discovered by staff during a routine site visit. So the ground sign is 4x6 and is a digital style sign, which is defined as changeable copy, which I'll go ahead and review in just a second. So using their site plan, we have in purple the permitted ground sign under the sign permit, and circled in red is the prohibited changeable copy sign. So on screen is the design for the permitted ground sign. And screen is a photo of the sign that was installed without a permit that is changeable copy or a digital style. So just a couple more photos and then I will get to the code. Okay, so the 2 variances are, the first is from 817-7E3, which are general sign regulations, and then total sign allocations and number of signs. And we have a point that states that 1 ground sign with a maximum permitted sign surface area of 60 square feet shall be permitted for each street frontage subject to the total lot allocation. So since they had already had a permitted ground sign with their sign permit, a second one that would also be on South Liberty Drive would be not allowed without a variance from this point. The second standard is from 817.7B2, which are general sign regulations prohibited signs. So that states all animated or changeable copy signs, including billboard signs or signs which move by mechanical means or by movement of air, are prohibited. And then to go a little bit more into that, the definition of changeable sign does include, states that the definition encompasses a digital or electronic sign format. So the petitioner is requesting to keep the changeable copy ground sign that was installed without a permit, and after the fact, permit would be required if the variances are approved. So on screen, we have the petitioner's letter, which they've included with the application packet. And on screen, they have some supporting materials supporting their argument for maintaining this sign. And then just a few scenarios, as I like to do, which is if the variances are denied, the petitioner would be required to remove the sign. They would then maintain the one sign that we saw earlier, a ground sign. If the request is approved, the petitioner would be allowed to keep the second changeable copy ground sign for the South Liberty Road frontage, and then that changeable copy sign would be capped at a maximum of its current size of 24 square feet per side, at its current size by 6. So staff does recommend denial of both variances, stating that the petitioner is unable to prove practical difficulties and that any hardship was self-created. Does anybody have any questions?
Members of the BZA have questions for Ms. Crecelius?
It sounds like the ordinance is pretty clear on those changeable signs.
Yes,
that
they are.
There really is, I guess the concern is driver distraction and all those different things that I read somewhere in the packet.
I'm not sure if I can speak to the intent of the standard.
Exactly, but it seems to be clear in the code.
Yes, and it has been that way since at least 1992. This is a standard that carried over from the old ordinance as well.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then Mr. Butler, if you would like to come up, sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm Daniel Butler. I'm with Bynum Fanning & Associates. I'm a registered civil engineer here in Indiana. We're representing Community Kia tonight. I highlighted, well, I'm going to highlight just a few aspects of, why we'd like to have this approved. But the full new findings are in my letter that I put in the packet, so hope you got the chance to read that of, different reasoning why each one of those items would be allowable in this case. In terms of the one monument sign per property, so following the strict definition of this particular property, following that definition is you get one monument sign per frontage, road frontage, and we're unique, and it's a long property along a arterial road, so lots of traffic, and so having one in this particular case, it's unique. It has 579 feet along Liberty for phase 1 only, and that's 770 feet total. And so following the strict definition of one frontage for one monument sign alone would meet that, argue that for that particular case and why we're unique there. Applying the strict definition of ordinance prohibition against having changeable copy or a digital sign in this case is this sign was not placed. The sign company that did this for them didn't realize that it hadn't been permitted, so they went ahead and placed it. They wanted this to be a quality looking sign that has that wants it to be restricted to a low light or a very it would be less than light coming off of it if you had it front lit. So they are refining it to the LED to more of a matte look to it, so that it wouldn't have that full flashy kind of draw your eye. Actually, from the picture that you saw earlier, you really can't see it from Liberty. So this is never the intention of this particular sign to draw your eye. This is only to give the site a quality feel and look once you're already in there. Because you'll find community Kia online. You're unlikely to be drawn by a sign. They don't need signage for that reason. It's more for the quality, and it's a very expensive sign, a very a kind of sign that is supposed to give a matte look to it in that sense. Your typical digital or interchangeable copy sign is, say, something like a gas station sign where you see the fueling prices that when you drive by, and it's meant to capture your eye. And I can see why the ordinance prohibits those types of signs where it's distracting the drivers, and too many of them, that's distracting, especially on a main road. So again, this particular sign is not meant to draw your eye or be flashy or anything like that. We are committing to, if you would entertain approving this tonight, we are committing to having that. I think in my letter, it's a low light and not increasing from that. So commit to that low light matte look and no brighter than that. And then not be an non-interchangeable copy sign. So they would not change it on any given day, and they would change it if they need to one time per day. There is a clock on it, so that changes obviously every minute, or the temperature. I won't go any further than that, so if you have any questions for me, then I'm here.
And before we ask questions of you, I'd like to tell tech services that our screen is dropped. It says that the call is dropped and it needs to be rejoined, just for, if you could help us with that. And do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Butler? No. Stay tuned. Are there members of the public who would who have questions or would like to speak either in favor or in opposition to this sign request? You see anyone? No. So we come back to the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and or a motion.
Let me ask. I'm on page 104.
Yes.
I wonder if I can move this the other way, so I'll be looking at you guys when I talk. Next month. There's a red sign, Community Kia now open, on page 104. Could we? Yeah. Right. Is that the movable sign? Is that the one that changes?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And our ordinance just says you can't do that. Basically, it's there. Not only do we have two signs, which I would be. It is a long frontage, and I might be sympathetic to two signs, but. And I'm a little surprised. I mean, if you've got a movie theater and you want to put out what the movie is that's showing this week, or a sale at Menards or whatever, you just can't have a movable sign that does that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. I'm not sure I get the need for that restriction, but I don't think that's my job. Is to go behind why this needs to exist. I don't know what the contract with the sign company said, but usually one of the parties has a duty to get any necessary permits. And but you don't know that. You know, I wouldn't expect the staff to know that. But somebody didn't get a permit they should have gotten. That's obvious, and which they wouldn't have gotten. It's not like this is something that would probably be permitted. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that I was getting the picture.
I'll just make one additional comment, and that is that I agree with everything Mr. Loftman just said, but I think the other concern I have is that it seems very clear to me in the ordinance that the digital signs are prohibited. So this would set a precedent if we approved this, if it had been built and then we approved it afterwards.
I would go just one step further to say that sign ordinances are a primary way that a community can kind of define its feel, its overall aesthetic. And this is, I go up and down Liberty Drive quite a bit, and this is not character surrounding it. So, I think the ordinance is there for a reason. So if anyone would like to make a motion.
I think I'll make a motion to deny variances 25-4A and variances 25-4B, the community Kia prohibited signs variance to Chapter 817, and the total sign allocation and number variance to Chapter 817. And the reason is the ordinance is very clear about changeable signs and the number of. I think that speaks for itself.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second to deny variance VAR-25-5A and 5B. A vote yes is a vote to deny the variance. Margaret Clements?
Yes.
Skip Daly is absent at this point. Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Motion carries forward as.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. We move on to the last two variances for the evening, variance 25-5A and B. And this is the Jivan Sandhya Incorporated, I'm not pronouncing that right, I'm sure, maximum impervious cover variance to Chapter 805 and the sidewalk variance to Chapter 818 concerning 3.235 plus or minus acre parcel in Section 14 of Van Buren Township at 4645 West State Road 45. And I believe that Mr. Myers will review this with us.
Yes. All right, this is the Jivan Sandhya maximum impervious cover variance, Chapter 805, and the sidewalk variance, Chapter 818. 4645 West State Road 45, 3.235 acre parcel. Petitioners requesting these design standards variances to maximum impervious cover and the sidewalk requirement for the petition site at this address. The petition site consists of 3 parcels consisting of 1 lot of record that is zoned Residential 1, or RES for short, and is currently utilized as the Bloomington Indian Cultural Center. The Indian Cultural Center is classified as a religious facility per the terms of the County Development Ordinance, which is a permitted use in the RES zone. Property owner contacted the Planning Department with questions related to the proper permitting process to construct a 4,800 square foot expansion of the existing structure on the southwest side. And the Planning Department indicated that there is no commercial site plan on file for the petition site. So by initiating an expansion of the existing structure, the property owner would be required to submit a new commercial site plan filing and is subject to these variances. After the pre-design meeting with staff, it was determined that the variance to maximum impervious cover to Chapter 805 would be required, as well as the variance to the sidewalk requirement for site plans, should the property owner not want to install the sidewalk as required by Chapter 818 of the County Development Ordinance. Now, the possibility of additional variances were discussed and communicated to the property owner, including a variance to parking requirements due to the limited area of the property and the size of the proposed expansion, as well as a side yard setback variance along the western property line with respect to the existing cultural center being close to the side property line in that area on the west side. The petitioner did not apply for a parking variance, which indicates to staff that they are confident that they can meet the parking requirements of Chapter 814, as well as the side yard setback variance was not requested, as the petitioner has communicated to staff that they will be addressing that through a forthcoming Type E administrative subdivision application, which is the process to transfer acreage between two adjacent properties. Currently, a portion of the Indian Cultural Center's parking lot is located within an easement that's owned by the property to the west at 3225 South Duncan Road. And this is that area that they are discussing with that property owner to initiate a Type E, which would alleviate the side setback issue with respect to the existing structure, as well as put that parking area that's been in an easement for quite some time to be incorporated into their actual property. To date, a pre-design detailing this process has been issued, and planning staff has yet to receive an application for the Type E, but it's our understanding that that will likely come after this variance process. On the screen, I have the definition for impervious cover, because we have been seeing a lot of variances come through for maximum impervious cover. And that is, according to Chapter 850, a surface material through which water cannot pass or through which water passes with difficulty. Included in this calculation is any developed surface that either prevents or significantly slows the infiltration of water into the ground compared to the manner that such water entered the ground prior to development, or which causes water to run off in greater quantities or at an increased rate of flow than that present prior to development. Impervious surfaces shall include, without limitation, rooftops, gravel areas, excluding landscape applications, pervious pavers, asphalt or concrete paved areas, private access roads, driveways, decks, parking lots, patio areas, swimming pools, driveways, buildings, tennis courts, parking lots, gravel, etc. This excludes all required stormwater infrastructure per Chapter 761. So that definition captures a lot of different surfaces that would be considered impervious. On the screen now, we have details of the two variances at hand. So Chapter 805-1 indicates for the RES zone that the maximum impervious cover is 50% of the lot size or 7,000 square feet, whichever is less. So for this particular property, being that it is a religious facility in a residential 1 zone, which is permitted, the existing structure alone covers approximately 15,682 square feet. The existing parking areas, walkways, pavement, and accessory structures account for an additional 29,185 square feet, approximately. And the site exhibits a total of approximately 44,867 square feet of impervious cover, which is approximately 37,000 square feet over the allowed maximum for the RES zone. And then we have the Chapter 818 requirement for a sidewalk with respect to site plans. And that indicates that sidewalks shall be placed within the right-of-way to the extent possible when prompted by a site plan. Under a site plan, sidewalks are required to be installed if any of the following prompts apply to the commercial site. And I'll direct your attention to number 3 in bold for emphasis. And it states the property is within the urban area boundary as defined in the county development ordinance. Okay, so on the screen, we have the site conditions map. The property has road frontage to West State Road 45, and you can see the adjacent property to the southwest. You can see that that parking area is off-site, and that's where that easement is located that I previously mentioned. Here on the screen, we have the urban area boundary. So all area in pink is the urban area boundary. And if you zoomed out farther, you'd get a better idea of its extent. but you can see that it clearly captures a lot of the area within this map frame. And therefore, with site plans, a sidewalk is required. Also on the screen, as part of an analysis by staff with respect to sidewalks, we look at the Monroe County Vision Map, an alternative transportation plan. So the yellow star on the map indicates the approximate location of the petition site, and then the colored roadways correspond to different degrees of intent to improve those as greenway corridors, recreational trails, or road improvements. So you will note that it's kind of hard to see, and if I could zoom in, I would. But right in the corner here of the star, the upper left-hand corner, along West State Road, I think it's West State Road 46, 45, excuse me. There is no coloring, indicating that there is no plan for improvements along that roadway, as well as there's no proposed priority greenway in this area either. And of course, some of that is likely related to it being the state road and not being county jurisdiction. So we use this map to look at things like priority for greenways and road improvements to see if those improvements would be forthcoming and that a sidewalk would be necessary or recommended. On the screen, we have the letter from the petitioner that details the two requests for the variances, as well as a brief explanation as to why they are not requesting a parking variance, as well as the side setback variance, I believe. Yes, they mentioned the type E process here in the bottom clause. On the right side of the screen, we have the existing exhibit for the easement area that captures some of the petition site's parking. And again, this area would be subject to would be the subject of the type E administrative subdivision. On the screen now, we have the proposed site plan of the property provided by the petitioner. You can see this gray rectangle here on the southwest side of the structure. That is the proposed 4,800 square foot expansion. And again, you can see that expansion would actually require that the property acquire that acreage from their neighbor that is currently in an easement to ensure that they're not crossing over their own property line. And it also details some of their parking areas, as well as gives you an idea of the current amount of impervious cover. And now I have a few aerial pictometry images showing the site, and some street view as well, showing the property and its impervious surfaces and accessory structures along State Road 45. Okay, so that brings me to staff's recommendation. Staff recommends approval of variance, VAR 25-5A and VAR 25-5B, citing both variance requests satisfied the standards for design standards approval. Specifically, VAR 25-5A, this variance allows the existing impervious cover to remain and add the proposed 4,800 square foot expansion to the existing building. For clarity's sake, any additional impervious cover surface not mentioned in this report will require an additional variance or require existing impervious cover to be removed as to result in no net gain of impervious surface. So that's just kind of a clarification statement there. And then VAR 25-5B, a little bit of rationale provided by staff here. The nearest existing sidewalk is on West State Road 45, more than 4,100 feet away to the northeast. And West State Road 45 is not identified on the Monroe County Alternative Transportation Vision Map. I will now take any questions.
Members of the BZA have questions for Mr. Myers?
So we are not going to, your recommendation is they need not build a sidewalk because there really aren't any sidewalks in that contiguous area. Have I got that right?
Correct, and that it being not as part of the Monroe County Alternative Transportation Vision Map.
Use the microphone. Thanks.
That wasn't hard. The area where this proposed building is going to go, is it already impervious?
Yes, it does appear on the screen if you're looking at the aerial imagery that is improved or concrete pavement area.
So this isn't going to make any change in the existing impervious area, is that right?
I think it might extend a bit farther than the current pavement area. I don't know the exact measurements of the existing pavement area that serves as like a recreational area at the back of the structure. I'd have to defer to the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to fully understand that.
Well, Mr. Briggert, you win the prize again for being the last. Please sign in and we'll swear you in. Sorry to make you wait, but thank you for your graciousness.
He's very special.
Yeah. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm Bill Riggert with Blutzel Riggert Cooper James here representing the Indian Cultural Center and their proposed improvements to their facility. Drew basically covered everything that needed to be covered. I might add to Mr. Laughlin's question about the area behind that's currently an outdoor play area, and it's gravel and sand. And so it's somewhat impervious, but not completely impervious like a roof area would be. And we extend out beyond that. I don't know, Drew, if you can show that one exhibit that had the, that we had. So that play area with the proposed addition. And there was one more component that I forgot to mention with impervious surfaces. There's a sidewalk that would lead out of the back door and the others. So there's another maybe approximately 650 additional square feet of cover that we would need to have if we added the sidewalk. So that would bump that 4,800 up to 5,000. Undo my math here.
400s is
Yeah, 450.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if possible, I'd like to kind of add that in the event we need to put all sidewalk in and just not stoops at either door. But aside from that, I can try to answer any other questions you have.
Staff, is that, does he need to refile anything because of that?
I don't believe so. The site plan was provided as part of the filing, so that you can see on the screen faintly there along the southwest side of the building is that sidewalk that they've detailed.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Riggert? We'll turn then to the public for comments, and if there's anyone speaking in opposition, you'll have a chance to address us again. Thank you. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please raise your virtual hand. Or if you would like to speak in opposition to this petition, please let us know. And let me know if you see anyone. We see no one. Okay, I'd like to just make a comment about that pink urban overlay. I mean, when you look at underneath that pink overlay, that's pretty rural. And it's out there by the County 4-H Fairgrounds, and it's out there by the airport, and that's pretty rural. So the sidewalk thing doesn't bother me at all, you know, not at all. And I think that this is a nice addition to our community. We do have a growing citizenry of Indian people. And it would be nice to have a cultural center there. And, but I like the idea. Is there anyone who is in opposition or would like to say anything else about this? Or could we have a motion?
Yeah, I couldn't understand why we were allowing an increase in the impervious surfaces, but basically except for the little margin on the building and the sidewalk if needed. We're not changing impervious surfaces very much. Immaterial change in impervious surfaces, so my initial reservation, I was waiting to find out, has been addressed, so I'm comfortable with, and certainly the sidewalk is sort of borders on a no-brainer.
Yes.
It's particularly convenient for me.
We don't want to place pedestrians in conflict with the highway.
If we're ready, I'm going to make a motion, we approve variances 25-5A and variances 25-5B. I cannot pronounce that first name, excuse me, but for the maximum impervious cover variance to Chapter 805 and also the sidewalk variance to Chapter 818 for property located at 4645 West State Road 45.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to approve VAR-25-5A and VAR-25-5B. And I do want to state that in the staff report, it says that it's the existing impervious cover to remain and add the proposed 4,800 square foot expansion. And we will be adding approximately 650 square feet to that.
Thank
So
you.
correct?
We can
Yes,
make a friendly
yes.
amendment to 5,500 just to square it up a little bit and make a little
Yes.
comfy room for the sidewalk.
All right. So a vote yes is a vote to approve those two variances. Go ahead and call the roll. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
and Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Motion passes
Thank you.
4-0.
Thank you, and have a good evening. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Always good to see you.
We're looking forward to seeing the project. too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Should we move to adjourn?
Is there anything else? Oh, David, you've got to drive. Have a safe drive.
Where are you driving far?
Yes.
Driving, yes.
Relatively far.
Okay.
So be safe. It's
Be
going to be
safe.
slippery.
Be safe.
As my colleagues at the East Monroe Water Corporation would say, it'd be slippery, more slippery than a greased hog at a county 4-H fair.
Those expressions.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we did.